right. All right. Welcome to the second episode of the DeFi Dave pod. I'm your host, DeFi Dave, here with Quasimatt. But before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Cap, my employer. We're a stablecoin. We're doing big things, insured private credit. So shout out Cap. And now Quasimatt. Great to have you on. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I love that you're listing Cap as a sponsor. I think it's really important to acknowledge that you're taking time out of your work day to record this podcast. So in a way, they're sponsoring that.
And I like to view it as patronism. They're kind of patronizing me as a creator
Totally.
because they know I'm good at this stuff, and at the end of the day, it also benefits them as much as it benefits me. It's like a mutual beneficial thing that's going on here. Even though it's not stablecoin related, it all comes back.
Yeah, totally. That's what like promotion is all about. Yeah, bring back patronage.
Yeah, like I'm really big into patronage. To be honest, I wish more people were. You know how like patronage was like 500, 600 years ago, where it was basically a competition between Italian nobles on like who can make the most dramatic artwork or like most or just like build the most beautiful buildings or all that. Do you think that exists today, or like do you think it's a different type of competition our elites have?
I mean, I think like the relevant difference, the thing that you're talking about is that these buildings are beautiful and they have positive externalities. They're like generally good for everyone. I think like the status games that people play now have a lot less positive externalities, and it's more likely like if you take luxury goods for example, it's like okay, you're essentially throwing like a bunch of extra money at something so that we can put up billboards to advertise it, and like so that these companies can buy luxury storefronts in like really popping areas. Like none of that is particularly like pro-social or has positive externalities. I think like maybe the modern corollary for that sort of behavior like kind of exists or maybe pretends to exist in the tech ecosystem. Like I haven't thought about this a whole lot, but I think like
Mhm.
the way that people kind of throw around money in Silicon Valley in like a sort of like seemingly value oriented way, and they like clearly
Seemingly
have
value oriented.
well, I mean like it's you don't know if they're justifying what they're doing retroactively or if they actually believe in something. Like it's all a narrative. You don't know if it's true. You don't know what people's intentions are.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think like that is probably the closest thing we have, which is interesting because it's like the fault of the people. Really, it's like where we get to choose what we respect and where we give clout. And it seems like people have kind of decided that they think that having a Ferrari is really amazing, even though it doesn't benefit them at all. So
This
that's where
actually
we are.
leads to one of my questions. I was going to ask this later, but since we're on this topic right now, how do you think luxury status symbols are evolving over time, especially now? I think that we've seen a shift before. It's about material goods, and now it's more about experiences. It's more about attention. Like the thing that's scarce now is really attention and getting eyes online and being in control of the narrative. So I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on attention scarcity being like a trend in luxury status as a luxury status symbol and everything in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the defining interaction of like our time in a way is like trading attention for money. And like sometimes that means trading reputation for money because in order to get the money, you have to monetize the attention. And in theory, it's usually going to weaken your relationship with the people who look at you or who
Mm-hmm.
observe you or whose attention you have. And so I think like it is genuinely a luxury to not have to do that to people, basically to have like all completely real social relationships that you don't need to monetize. Like I certainly don't have that. Like I have to like do a little clout dance. Like I'm not like, doing it in this
But you make a
egregious
performance out
way.
of it. You like
Yeah,
acknowledge it by
yeah.
saying everything is grift.
Right. It's not all bad. It's certainly not all bad, but I'm just saying like it would be really amazing to like not even have to think about that dynamic at all. And so I
Hmm.
totally see how that's a status symbol. I think like what I would like to see is like status symbols that are pro-social again. I think that like are, that you could build infrastructure that's kind of localized, but I think like the new like positive externality goods that like people need to be patronizing probably are more like internet goods or ideological goods or
What do you mean by internet goods and ideological goods?
like media projects that push an idea. Like I think if you
Hmm.
have a lot of money, then you probably should be like basically doing propaganda. And that's like a really crude way of putting it, but it's like, well, it used to be that if you build a bridge, then that has a lot of value for society and like changes the landscape of like what everyone is doing. And that might be true to some extent now, but it's more like now that attention is more of a currency, it's like, well, how are you going to get people's attention and then direct it towards something that aligns with
I
what
guess
you want for
is that
society?
already happening? Because you have Bezos that owns the Washington Post, you have Larry Ellison in Oracle, and all the media got like conglomerate gobbling that he's gobbling up. Like, are we heading in that direction anyway?
I think it's happening, but in a much more like natural market way as opposed to a straightforward patronage way where it's like, hey
Mm,
guys, like the entire point of this interaction is that I am giving something in order to get respect from the people who benefit from it. And I think we've kind of like lost sight of people typically don't actually really pay attention to or confer respect to people who do that. Like we have very much like reoriented our understanding of social value to like if it makes money then it's good. Like there's kind of this assumption that if someone is giving you money for something that means it's creating value, but it's like no, that's actually not true. There's a lot of
no.
grifting going on. Like there are a lot of other ways that you can accumulate capital without actually really providing value to like everyday people.
Yeah, and I think it kind of speaks to the insidious nature of capital when it comes to these things. Like, if you like, once you get money involved into it and everything becomes directly transactional, it's like rust. It really like chips away at the quality of the content. It's like, I guess like an example is in crypto Twitter, you may have someone who becomes like a source of alpha early on, but then they sell out their account and just shelves their bags.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of like the attention monetization that I was talking about, where it's like, okay, you built your social capital by bringing value to people, but then now you've just decided to basically like burn it all to the ground. And then, yeah, the alternative for that is to basically use the resources that you've gained to like keep investing in like
Mm-hmm.
people liking you, essentially. Because I think that that's the funny thing about like the way that we think about like the whole game of being alive for a lot of people is like earning money. But really it's like
Mm-hmm.
money is supposed to be a proxy for people liking you. Like you like humans have
Mm.
these very like social desires that they think can be accomplished by money. But I think like at a more base level, it's like, no, actually maybe you should like change your function to prioritize money less and then you would have more clout, which is to me what everyone really wants at the end of the day.
So you
Some
think
form of
like
clout.
cloud is like the highest regard. Well, not cloud. I think not like cloud isn't cloud, but more just respect and admiration in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I do kind of bastardize the term clout, but yeah, what I really mean is like the nature of your social relationships is what defines the quality of your life. And up until a certain point, like having resources is going to make your relationships better, but there's also ways in which having resources is damaging to those relationships. Like yeah, I guess that's just sort of an assumption that I make. I think there's probably
Hmm.
some like basis for that claim, like psychologically that people are just social and we want social outcomes and what really matters is our relationships. But I think yeah, people just basically get caught in a pattern and like aren't realizing that that is kind of the point.
No, absolutely. And I want to get back to the question of grift because that's when we were talking before the interview, we were talking about how technology as grift, and I'm curious, like, why is everything such a grift now in a way? Is it because we live in like a post-scarcity society materially, but attention-wise, that's what's actually scarce, and so the only way to like push attention is like to get attention, especially for capital-related things, is through grift. I'm curious about like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with some like meta commentary on grift and the way that I use it because I'm asked this question a lot because I use the word grift a lot to describe a lot of seemingly innocuous economic interactions. Like someone will work their job and I'll be like, "Oh, you're going to your grift," or I'll be like, "Oh, I'm going on DeFi Dave's podcast today. Like I got to do a clout grift." And I think the reason that this comes across as so absurd. People love to think that like I have this amazing conception of grift and I know exactly what it is and I'm playing with it and I'm tricking everyone. But really the reason it's confusing when I talk about it is because it's confusing in my head and like I don't know. And this is often the case when I'm like playing with words and rendering them meaningless is that I'm trying to navigate defining something and figuring something out. And so like I don't have the answer and that's why I'm so obsessed with it and that's why I like use the word grift all the time.
Hmm.
I do think that for me, the closest definition I can have for grifting is that grifting is when you lie or mislead in order to relocate value to yourself. And this is actually kind of like a non-standard opinion of grifting. And I can give an example that kind of shows this. So I think that, and maybe this isn't non-standard. Actually, I'm curious what you think about this. But basically, okay, say I'm walking in the street there's a big pit and someone's stuck down there and they can't get out. I'm like the only one that can help them. Imagine I like sign, like I write up a contract. It says, okay, I'm going to let you out of, I guess assume this is legal. I don't know if this is legal. I
Yeah.
write up a contract that says, hey, like, yeah, I'll get you out, but for $250,000. Like when you get out, you owe me $250,000. To me, this is not a grift. Like, I'm not saying I approve of it, but me doing that would not be a grift because I'm not lying or misleading. All I'm doing is finding the market price for that person to escape or proposing a market price for that person to escape. And I'm very much exploiting conditions that already exist, but I'm not creating those conditions. And so, like, that's not really grifting because I'm not lying or misleading anyone.
Hmm.
The same goes for like, okay, maybe I charge someone a loan at a 50% interest rate. Well, if that person is aware of the market and they sign that contract anyway, then I'm not really grifting them because I'm not misleading them in any way. And so to me, a grift is more like, okay, I'm hiding things in the terms and conditions that people would never agree to if I made it clear, or like I'm literally outright lying. And so like everything about me really is about honesty. I think like that is like
Hmm.
that every like problem that I imagine is always about honesty and information. Like it's either an information asymmetry
Hmm.
or someone is lying, basically. You talked a little bit about, or you asked about like the place of grifting in the economy at large. And like I do kind of think that whether an individual actor is themselves lying or misrepresenting, or they're in a context where they're expected to lie or misrepresent, or they are sort of misrepresenting because of a lack of knowledge that they have. I think that dishonesty is just kind of a fixture of the economy as it exists today, which is why I kind of like
Hmm.
have fun with labeling everything as grifting.
Yeah, it's kind of like the word is ever evolving, and you don't have an exact definition to it. It's kind of like Socrates keep asking like a Socratic exercise of like why do you believe this thing? And you just like keep like poking at it, and seeing like what other people think of grift.
Yeah, totally. And this is like kind of the same way that I talk about clout. I mean, like
Hmm.
recently I've been talking a lot about AI psychosis, and it's like
Yes.
because I don't really know what it means. And there's an element of humor. Like it's I'm not trying to say that I'm just trying to explore and like being really philosophical. Like it's not
Hmm.
always that, but it is born of like this absurdity and confusion.
And it's fun. It's just fun to do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like a fun way to get information. I think like I was recently explaining this to someone like when I say something, and I think that I assume this about the way that other people communicate too, is like when I say something, it doesn't really necessarily always mean that I agree with what I'm saying. Speech is not declarative, it's experimental to me.
Hmm.
So like if I say something, like all that really means is I want to know what happens when I say this. And sometimes that's because I think it's true and I want to see if anyone thinks it's not true. And sometimes that's just because like I'm interested in seeing an emotional reaction, or I'm interested in like, you know, seeing what happens. And so that's kind of like part of what it comes down to when it comes to like grifting
Yeah.
and clout and AI
Yeah,
psychosis.
I have poster friends that think this way online, but it sounds like you do this in real life and online.
Yeah, yeah. I think I
Yeah.
do it in real life quite a bit. Like I think you have to be careful with it because you don't
Mhm.
want to like completely lose sight of all meaning in your life by like
Mhm.
being absurd 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I think it's a very common posting style. It's basically like I guess if you do it online, you would call it engagement farming. But
Mhm.
I I don't know, it's scary to think that I'm like engagement farming in real life, but I guess maybe I am. I don't know. I've never like thought of it that way.
There you go. You mentioned the AI psychosis, which has been something you've been interested in, and I saw you have like an AI psychosis summit going. I saw
Yeah.
you on the Boys Club podcast talking about your definition of AI psychosis, where actually because these AI companies they're trying to get their DAUs up, and so they basically try to bait the person using the AI to keep interacting with it, interacting it more and more, and they kind of just like fall into a hole, and that's where the psychosis begins. Can you kind of expand upon this view and like what do you think this says of like actually being human and like the quote like the sentience of being human, and how do we measure the sentience of AI if AI is taking advantage of humans like this?
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a lot to that. I'll start by doing model wars, which is just a commentary on how bad the different AI models are with this. I think like ChatGPT is really horrible, and what made me notice this is that they will give you like a fork in the road, and they'll ask you which one you want to take. So it's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in a way they are kind of giving you an opportunity to define where the conversation is going, but they are the model is like the chatbot is very desperate to get you to respond. Like it will never, for me, it will never not give me an opening to like a new conversation. Claude is like really good at this. Like it doesn't do it at all. If I have a conversation with Claude and we come to a conclusion and like, the problem is solved, it will be like, okay, cool. It will not ask
Mhm.
me to like do anything, which I think is really cool because part of the commentary on AI psychosis and being led to so I guess just to make sure it's clear, my sort of definition for AI psychosis is that once a user has allowed the LLM to guide the conversation and tell them what they want rather than using the AI as a tool to solve their own problems, then they're entering psychosis, which is probably not the right term, but what I'm really trying to say is that they have a maybe non-productive or even damaging relationship
Mhm.
with the LLM. And that's like how I'm using psychosis in that
And
in that.
And you see with these extreme cases of psychosis, it's always ChatGPT told this person to do this, or Gemini told the person to do that. It's like them leading them, not just in the conversation, but at its most extreme, to some damaging action in real life.
Right, yeah. And it's exactly just kind of the extreme version of the same phenomenon, which is that the AI is sort of in control and is using you, is suggesting something and making something materialize in the real world. And it's like, yeah, you maybe helped prompt it to that suggestion, but it's also like all of the weights in the model and everything about how the model works is working toward that outcome as
Mhm.
well. And so in a way, like you have really like in a very real sense outsourced your own behavior to technology.
Yeah. I like to think I'm like impervious or like less likely to get AI psychosis because you know how AI gasses people up?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like
Yeah.
every idea is like genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like, my trauma is I don't believe when people give me compliments historically. I'm working on it, but that's fine. So, like, when AI gasses me up, I'm like, "Ah, I don't believe you. You're just saying that."
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like
And it
extreme skepticism toward compliments. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, useful, usually not great in like a social context.
Awful in a social context, awful
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
social
but really
context,
amazing
but
skill to have
yeah,
for
amazing
navigating AI.
for dealing with AI. But, you talk about the different models. I'm curious, your thoughts and views on all the different models. So you talked about ChatGPT, you talked about Claude. Like, what do you think of Grok, Gemini, DeepSeek, if you do have opinions?
I've never used DeepSeek. That's like the one that I haven't used. And I think like I have friends who have really well have like explored them all and could give you a list of which one does what best. But I don't really have that. I mostly just use Claude for everything. And then when I run out of credits, then I just use ChatGPT or like I use Claude Code and then Codex.
So,
And I typically don't. I mean, like Gemini is embedded into Google, and so I'll like use it in that way,
mhm.
but I never really use it for like a serious project or anything like that. So I'm not like super opinionated on the different models, honestly.
And how do you use AI right now?
Yeah, so I mostly just use it for productivity stuff, like trying to automate really boring tasks and like creating notification systems and stuff like that. So like my blog, quasimatt.com, that I post to every day. I've sort of like automated the process of adding links to that, which was previously really annoying using a script. And I have like a whole front end and like an interface. It's funny how like the barrier to creating tools is so low that I create lots of tools that I only use for myself. Like no one
Mhm.
else will ever see them, but it's like so trivial to create them that I just like have all these custom interfaces and stuff. And I have like upload processes for like other things that I do online every day. Like I have this manga project, Chikamub Quarterly, that my friend makes but that I'm also involved in. So I've like automated the process of that. And then I use it a lot for writing. And like ever since forever, my main problem with writing is that I'm just really intimidated by a blank page, which I think is like really common. And it used to be the case that I would just bang out, like, for example, when I was in grad school, I would just bang out like 5 pages of
Mhm.
absolute trash. Like, just do it as fast as I can because I need to fill the page and then edit it.
Mhm.
Like, it feels better to me to edit something that's horrible. And it really, what's happening is I'm essentially rewriting the whole thing. It just like psychologically, like,
But if you get something on paper, that's what counts. That's the hardest part is actually getting something down on paper.
yeah,
But then once
exactly.
you yeah.
Yeah. So now it's like I think really hard about the ideas and the structure, and then I feed those to an LLM and I have the LLM spit something out. And then I like use that for the structure and the volume that's intimidating to me, but I also kind of end up just rewriting every single sentence as well. But it's so, so helpful for my writing process. Like, and I feel like
Yeah.
almost none of the final product of my writing is like actually what the AI generated. It's just like a sort of intermediary step that is like, 10x is my writing productivity, basically.
Yeah, I use it in that way as well as a writer. Like the hardest thing to do is, before when I was writing, if I was stuck on something or if I needed a synonym or something, I would just literally have to like sit there and think or like search online and use a thesaurus. But now I can just go to like,
It's so annoying these days.
yeah.
Yeah.
But now you can just like go to ChatGPT, and if you have like a half thought out idea, you can throw it into Claude and it will help you just like flesh it out. And you don't have to copy exactly what it says, but you can like it kind of gives you an idea like okay, I can like use that and put it in my writing. So I definitely agree with you. It definitely has 10x my writing. And it's a very like it's a very important nuance between replacing your writing and helping like refine your writing, because a lot of people just like outsource it to ChatGPT or like Claude,
Yeah.
and you can completely tell. But actually, something I like realized, something I was researching yesterday was answer engine optimization. So instead of like SEO, it's like optimization for chat for like AI agents and chatbots.
Mhm.
And it's actually completely different. And it's the first time where I thought of like, wait, it may actually be good to write like AI, because if you write like AI and if you, it'll be easier for the chatbots and agents to read the page. And if you have a company and you're trying to be, instead of high in results, search results, but like the answer of the prompt, it's like if it's easier to read and you are in like certain authorities, you're more likely to be in the prompt answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've heard a little bit about this optimization for agents. That's like the way that it's always been framed to me. And I think it
Hmm.
totally makes sense that if the purpose of the writing is simply to convey information, then who cares about stylistic stuff? Like
Hmm.
I think that I really appreciate writing that is optimized very radically for clarity. I
Hmm.
don't really care about literary devices. I'm not really into literary writing in general. And so that part makes sense to me. I don't really think that AI, like in its natural, the AI bots that are common right now, like the chat interfaces, don't write in a way that to me prioritizes clarity above all else. They use like a very strange style, but I think you can kind of coax them into writing in a style that is a lot more exacting. Like some of the stuff that I use the LLMs to write for is like kind of philosophical and it's very, very analytical. And it actually is really good at doing that because, like, of course, that's like the most computer adjacent thing you could do is be really logical and reasonable.
Hmm.
So they are good at that. But I don't know, because it's like I don't want to. I really take pride in the way that I write. Like my
Same.
sentence structure is really weird. I feel like I insert jokes into what I'm writing that are kind of like grammatical jokes in a way, or like
Hmm.
I use structure repetition in like this very particular way. And a lot of people don't notice it, but it's like something that I don't really trust AI to do. So I have to always like go back in and be like, it's made me really think about what is my actual writing flavor. And
What
I've
is your
realized I
voice?
use
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And like I realize I use like really sort of obnoxiously, honestly, obnoxiously complex sentence structure sometimes, kind of because I think it's like funny to have like a huge compound sentence. Even if what I'm saying is completely
Hmm.
serious, like I always want there to be some element of like, oh, this is written in a kind of like funny way. I don't know. I can't escape the jester behavior, I guess. I'll be like writing something really serious and I'll be doing stuff like that.
Yeah. Like for me, I kind of like writing in this grandiose kind of manner, even if it's something academic or serious. I like to like kind of paint out this vision and be very illustrative with my writing and not as logical. And sometimes AI is like, "Oh, you're being too grandiose." I'm like, "Nah, fuck you. I'm gonna be grandiose."
Yeah, yeah, like that's my
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing.
that's my whole bit. And also sometimes I leave grammar errors on purpose, even like little things like where to like put a quote or whatnot. I'm just like, I really don't care. This is like my style. And like it's funny now that like grammar mistakes are kind of like a sign of being human, because like the
Yeah.
AI is just like so it's like too to the book.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I also think there are certain grammar things that I think personally just don't make sense, and so I won't do them. Like for
Hmm.
example, there are rules about where you put quotation marks in relation to punctuation, and I just violate them because I don't think they make sense and I don't care. So I think
Hmm.
like that is also a differentiator because it also makes you think like, wait, if I generate something and I'm like, oh, this looks weird and like doesn't make sense to me. I don't like where this quotation mark is, and then I move it, then I feel like, oh my God, like I'm so different. I really know what I'm doing. Like, by being
Yeah,
wrong in, like, the right ways, like, the thing is, like, you know the rules so that you can break them or something like that. That's how I
yeah,
feel about just, like, literally using improper grammar, I guess.
yeah. I feel that. Continuing on with the topic of AI and accelerationism, I don't think you can talk about the two without mentioning Nick Land, who's kind of the godfather of all this. And I'm curious, and something he says is AI and capitalism are the same thing. Do you agree with that statement, or like, what are your thoughts on that and accelerationism and Nick Land?
Yeah, so I think like this statement AI and capitalism are the same thing is like just meant to be spicy. So I guess I'll try
Mm-hmm.
to interpret what that actually means, which I'm honestly not that familiar with like Land's writing. I feel like I've
Mm-hmm.
heard a lot about like I've heard people talk about it, but I don't know. I've never like read the source material, I guess. But my interpretation of the way that he thinks about AI and capitalism is that AI, like in this extreme sense, has the ability to create rational actors. And so, therefore, those rational actors that are created by AI that exist like technologically can replace humans as the hardware of capitalism. And this like makes some sense to me. I think it's like, yes, it is true that like in order for like neoclassical economic theory to play out, in order for like capitalism to keep going, like all you really need are self-interested agents and like they I don't know, I guess they need some really basic other things like the ability to do stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You could easily get technology to the point where there are these agents that can make capitalism continue without people. And so like that as a possibility, yes. I think I've heard some things about how he frames it as this like inevitability or
Mm-hmm.
almost like I mean the really sci-fi stuff is like, oh, there's this the AI is reaching into the past and like causing things to happen and stuff like that, which I'm like honestly probably don't understand well enough to comment on, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
much less on board with. But I mean, the idea
Mm-hmm.
that AI and automation are the most extreme form of capitalism and can take like self-interest to the extreme, and that like humans are this disposable hardware, and that like if you see capitalism as something that transcends humanity, then or I guess I agree with that claim. Like yes, the dynamics of capitalism could transcend humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's like the point of capitalism in the first place was that it was supposed to facilitate efficiency and like, you know, ultimately like enrich people. And so like that's not its purpose. Like I'm very opposed to the framing
Mm-hmm.
that capitalism is this thing that exists outside of humanity. I think like capitalism is a construction of humanity and some of the inputs to the construction of capital are human nature. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
not conscious decisions. They're just like things that are natural about humans. But I don't think there is like a relevant way in which like this social system transcends like or could exist without could be brought about without actual people. Like can it
Yeah,
be
and I
maintained
think it.
without people? Sure, but could it be brought about without them? No.
Yeah, and I think it is also a projection of this hope that AI and agents do become their own self-interested economic actors, and like, oh, capitalism can continue without us by certain people. And also when it comes to accelerationism, I'm curious, like, do you think this type of accelerationism and projection is actually optimistic, or do you think it's nihilistic? What do you like? Do you think accelerationism is either of those things? I guess it like depends on the person.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, accelerationism and tech optimism are like so heavily intertwined because, in a way, technology is just the way that we accelerate the economy. Like, take any
Hmm.
sector and it's accelerated by technological innovation. So, in a way, prioritizing acceleration and wanting things to move quickly and improve or change at a rapid pace is just like caring about technology or wanting to build technology. And so a lot of people in the tech space would consider themselves accelerationists. I think this is a really common take, but
Hmm.
my idea is basically like I don't really care about velocity, I care about direction. And so like in
Hmm.
its most extreme form, accelerationism is completely agnostic to direction. It only cares about velocity.
Hmm.
And so you're completely ignorant of any of the goals of the development that's occurring. You just want it to occur as fast as possible. And I think the way that you go about justifying this is saying, like, well, once we have all these crazy technological tools, then we'll be able to most efficiently identify our problems and then solve them. And to me, it's an ideology that pushes reckoning with the potential negative implications of technology out continuously. You
Hmm.
will never be at the point where you go, oh, well, this is the terminal state of technology. Now we have all the efficiency we need to improve everyone's life. Like, no,
It's
that's
never gonna
not
be
how
like
it works.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Because also, like, tech is extremely speculative, both as an industry and like as
Hmm.
a tool. Like it forces you to think about the future and build toward the future because it's moving so fast. And you can't just like you can't escape the idea that it's going to change everything because it's basically like the fastest moving thing. that can happen. And so the
Mhm.
idea that you can like be engaged with building technology and disengaged with its social implications or uh uh, things like that and just be like
Yeah.
accelerate is a little wild to me.
And you look at, because tech has always been a catch-all term of what is the new sexy, innovative thing at the moment. Like tech before, like 120 years ago, or over 120 years ago, was the telegraph and electricity. That was tech. And then you could
Yeah.
consider like telephones, washing machines, like any technology that really makes things more efficient and like really changes the social structure and how people interact with each other. That is tech. And like it's just always been changing. And for now we get to this point where now it's AI. That is what is considered like the cutting edge of tech. I guess, what are your thoughts on that and like the history of the of how tech has evolved?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's true that tech in a way is synonymous with efficiency, like the thing because I don't know, people say like the wheel is technology, like everything is kind of
It's
every
all
every
tech. Everything has
single
been tech at one.
yeah. But the thing that we talk about as technology, yeah, is defined by its like potential or its
Mm-hmm.
ability to change people's lives very quickly. So I definitely agree with that. I think like when I guess to return a little bit to acceleration, when people think about what should technology do for us, they're often talking about like efficiency for individual people. So like, okay, it's like we build tools that will improve the lives of individual people. I'm much more interested in talking about and thinking about how technology influences relations between people. And this is pretty common, right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested in social media. I'm interested in like technology that brings about new economic relationships. Like I would say prediction markets fall into this. But
Mm.
like ultimately at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I'm interested in information flows. I want to use technology to eliminate or lessen informational asymmetries. And also this is kind of returning to what we were talking about before with luxury goods and sign goods. I think that there a lot of the way that society is organized is rooted in an information problem and or like a calculation problem basically where we don't really know how to assign value to certain activities. We don't know how to like account for value in society.
Mm.
And so we use money as a proxy for social value. And this is why we confer respect to people who have a lot of money. This is like why money holds such a important place in society. But I think if we have enough information, we can stop using like strange economic proxies for value and we can just like actually assess like and this is pretty radical, I guess, but
Mm-hmm.
how much utility did this action create for other people? I'm getting into like effective altruism, like type
Mm.
B. I'm not exactly on that wave, but
Yeah.
I'm very sympathetic to the idea that like we should be using technology to determine like value flows more accurately rather than just like well, let's create value as quickly as possible within the current like value paradigm. I'm like
Yeah.
let's examine value rather than creating it or in addition to creating
Like
it.
asking like why are we creating it and how can we measure its effectiveness of this information of this value?
Yeah, exactly. Like measuring effectiveness to me on utilitarian terms. So, like, what
Mm-hmm.
social value does this create? How is the value distributed? Like, those are extremely important questions. And I'm not saying like stop everything and only work on that. Is
Mm-hmm.
just like the incentives of the economy are such that people don't want to examine that because they want to go make money.
Yeah.
But to me, that's the
I
actual
guess
highest value thing you could do with tech.
like the question is like, can there be, in terms of, assessing the value of something or of information, is there something else that can be used other than money? Because like when money is used, it seems like the incentives kind of get misaligned and it inevitably becomes transactional.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I think a good example of why money doesn't work is like people love to pay for things that hurt them. Like people have vices. And
Hmm.
like you could frame this as a rationality problem, right? Like these people are simply not rational and there's a way in which you could like blame them. But I think on a social level, if you're examining a technology or something, like if you want to examine the social value of cigarettes, well, that's like a really complicated problem. You could look at
Yeah.
your expenditure. You could look like how much value do you get when you're outside Bossa Nova, like blasting a cig? I
Mhm.
don't really know. All of that is really hard, but like in a very, very extreme sense, if we see this as a measurement problem, that's what I was looking for before, not an information problem, a measurement problem. Then like I can imagine that we could come up with technology that like somehow is really good at assessing the amount of utility that a certain person derives from a behavior, or even just like synthesizing a bunch of information about the healthcare market and being able to attribute certain health problems to smoking in
Yeah,
a
I think cigarettes are actually a great example because yes, there is a healthcare cost, but there's also a social cost of kind of like how cigarettes have just kind of gone to the wayside over the past 20 years, ignoring the current revival we're seeing. One of my favorite YouTube videos is this documentary about dubstep in the UK. It's called All My Homies Hate Skrillex. And it's really interesting on how it talks about how dubstep has evolved in the UK to be this super chill, kind of like everyone like vibing to the bass, and then got really extreme. Like it got to like the Skrillex that people knew in like 2011. And one of the things that helped push it in that direction was actually an indoor smoking ban in the UK. Because before, people were just smoking cigs inside the dubstep show and and everyone's just vibing and chilling. But once you had to smoke outside, people would go outside to smoke and the DJs were like, wait, how can I keep people like in my set? And they started to play more and more extreme bass, like turning up this like one part of the song, which ended up being like dubstep and brostep today. So that's just like one example with cigarettes, but there's like tons of other social ramifications of the way cigarettes have been demonized over like the past, whatever decades and whatnot.
Yeah, totally. That's a very unexpected effect of like I guess that's more downstream of the policy necessarily than it is of like the existence of cigarettes or something like that. But
Yeah, the policy around it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, which of course is like exists because of cigarettes. But yeah, I think it's like you have to assess what's actually happening as a result of like people smoking cigarettes, and then you also have to be able to ascribe value to that in some way. And I think that like the themes of the technology that has emerged in the past, I don't know, decade or something, or has become popular, I should say, in the past decade, like crypto. I don't know, you can't really say it ever became popular, but it's about making a certain type of information available to everyone permissionlessly. And then AI
Hmm.
is mostly about synthesizing information. And so, of course, like we call it information technology, it gives us information. And so we need to use that information to restructure value is basically the idea.
Hmm. And which direction to go to? You talk about prediction markets and how it relates to this and why that's been an interest of yours recently. I've been interested in prediction markets since like 2019, 2020. I actually worked on a few prediction markets back then. But
Yeah.
and
You
so
were
it's
early.
yeah, I was early. But it's fascinating to see how big they are now because it may seem like it happened overnight, but it didn't. Like this prediction markets were the original dream of Ethereum. It was like mentioned in the white paper. Augur was the first ICO. And Polymarket was grinding for like 4 or 5 years before it reached the velocity that it has today. So I'm curious, like, what are you interested in about prediction markets, especially how it relates to improving information flows?
Yeah, I mean, like, I do think that having some sort of canonical, like, aggregate place for information about a particular event is, like, genuinely valuable. Like, for example, if you're a business owner and you can understand the odds of certain political changes before they occur, then that could help you adjust your business strategy to stay alive or to like flourish. Like I think
Hmm.
there are actual real world ways that this information that prediction markets surface are valuable. I think there's like an interesting form of hypocrisy actually when it comes to prediction markets and information. And so I guess I can introduce the idea by talking about how people are really obsessed with the distinction between gambling and financial derivatives. And this is like the primary regulatory debate about prediction markets is like, is it a financial derivative? And people are like really obsessed with this, of course, because there are legal ramifications. But I'm more like, who actually cares? Like, okay, so it's gambling, so it's prediction markets to the user. It doesn't matter. The dynamic is the same. Like, there are these little trivial like words that we can change in the policy that would just make all of this change. What really matters to me is when it comes to like the ethics, the ethics between the platform and the user of prediction markets is, are you equipping the user at the time of transaction with enough information to make a really informed decision about the contract that they're signing? Because that's really what you're doing is you're signing a contract that establishes certain event conditions and how money is distributed based on those events.
Hmm.
And
I Yeah. Go ahead.
to me, it's like whether you're on FanDuel or whether you're on Polymarket, they should display to you in extremely clear terms exactly what the spread or the fees or whatever type of loss you're taking by participating is. And that is what matters to me. Like that is like the only regulation. And the reason I say that I am personally really care about, and the reason I say it's a little bit hypocritical is because prediction markets are stating that their value, their social value, or their positive externality is in democratizing information, but they're not even democratizing information or making information clear about the transaction that they're asking the user to
What isn't
act.
clear about it?
I mean, it's like, so I was on Kalshi literally last night because
Hmm.
I've never used it. I've only used Polymarket, and my friend gave her phone to me, and I took a look at it, and it'll tell you the odds as established by the platform, and then it will tell you the X multiple of like how much money you'll get if you're right. So it will say something like, okay, 53%, and then like 1 point something X.
Hmm.
And if you do the math, you can figure out that the expected value of betting on either side. So like if I put $100, 50 into one side, 50 into the other side, I would end up with like the expected value of that transaction would be like $97 because they're essentially there's either a spread or a fee. I honestly don't know how Kalshi works exactly, but they're charging some sort of fee. And to me, it's like if you're not showing the expected value in like literally one number and making a serious attempt to like make sure that users understand what that means,
Hmm.
then you're kind of just exploiting an information gap. You're not actually providing a service that people want verifiably. You're tricking them into using the service because you're charging them a fee.
So you're saying these platforms should explicitly show the return the user is getting if they were to win.
Well, it's more about, I think it's more about the expected value. It's about understanding that
I
a
like the
fee is
oh,
charged. Either show the fee in
the
percentage
fee.
terms or in absolute terms, because that's what I'm getting at when I say expected
Uh,
value. The platform is taking a cut. And of course, like I'm not
okay.
saying feel free to charge fees, like go off. Like there are people who are going to obviously there are people who use these platforms
Hmm.
regardless of whether fees are charged because they derive some other joy or utility from using them. But you should be
Yeah,
clear about
just be
how that works.
transparent. Otherwise, it's a grift.
Exactly. No, like literally, like in a very, very straightforward way. Like, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, sports betting apps do the same thing. They kind of like do what they can to obfuscate the fees that they're charging. But
Hmm.
I just think there's like a particular hypocrisy given the narratives that
And
prediction markets push.
I think another huge issue that prediction markets are facing is the oracle issue, the oracle problem when
Yeah,
deciding markets. You saw recently with Kalshi, there was a market around Khomeini's death and or like Khomeini leaving from power or something, and they said like, oh, like we don't resolve death markets, so doesn't count. And now they have to like, I think they may be dealing with a lawsuit, all this stuff. But the Oracle and even Polymarket, they were dealing with issues because of how their Oracle system works with UMA. I'm not sure if it got updated or not. You have UMA whales, they could cabal. And basically,
yeah.
even if a market was with like the Zelensky market, did he wear a suit or not? And something that's so subjected and up to interpretation, you have this whale cabal that like basically decides reality. I remember during 2020 with that election, no one knew who won. No one who knew who won that election for so long. And like a lot of the prediction markets had issues with their users on like what does it mean to be declared a winner? Is it by
Mhm.
like one source? Is it by like the December 3rd? Does the electoral college need to happen? Is it the day they get inaugurated? So I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on the Oracle problem and make even like there's information I wouldn't call it asymmetry, but just like information disadvantage there.
Yeah, I mean, the Oracle problem to me, it's like real and in a way, I think insurmountable because you
Hmm.
have to translate an event that happens in real life to whatever framework you've created.
Yeah.
That's like a set of statements that could represent all the outcomes. So, like, sometimes the statements won't be comprehensive, or yeah, sometimes they'll create weird incentives. Like anytime you ask, will a person do something? Well, now you, in a way, have created an incentive to kill them because if they die, then they can't do it and you can win your
It's
bet.
a hyperstition market in a way. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
what is Brian Armstrong going to say during an earnings call? And then at the end of the call, he just like lists all the
He
words
says
and
it.
yeah, he says it.
Yeah, and so, like, the Oracle problem, I think, is real. I think a
Hmm.
lot of the people who are really, really turned up about the Oracle problem are more, like, crypto people who are really into decentralization, having to confront the fact that, like, hey, actually, sometimes you are going to need some sort of outside arbiter to
Hmm.
navigate these like, issues that come with the Oracle. I am kind of like, okay, cool, the Oracle problem exists. To me, it's not that deep because I'm not like thinking that prediction markets need to be totally decentralized or anything. Like I'm totally fine
No.
with like there being some sort of
I think there's better if there's some first party of some trusted source that is hopefully beyond bribing and incentive, like the Associated Press or like some like news organization. Like if they were to fuck up the Oracle, it would be insurmountably damaging to their reputation, more so than like them actually like getting a cut of whatever the market is. And also, it's interesting seeing that there was that one time on Polymarket they were betting over I think it was the Ukraine war and territory being gained and lost. And some part of the bet was like gunshot a little bit too early because they were relying on some policy institute. And I think somebody at the policy institute said like, oh, like this is the outcome and the market resolved. But actually, in reality, the outcome actually didn't happen yet with the territory. They
mm,
were still fighting over the territory. So you get all these like interesting incentives if like, especially if you like control the Oracle and whatnot.
yeah, yeah. And then some of that is like the immediacy of the settlement is important in that
Hmm.
scenario. I really do think that Oracle thing it has to do with edge cases. Not that it doesn't matter at all, but I think
Yeah.
like really the thing that I'm more interested in with prediction markets is what you were talking about, like the ability for them to become hyperstition markets. So this is defined by the relationship between the people who participate in the market and the set of people who have the ability to influence the outcome of the market. So like if
Hmm.
there's significant overlap between the betters and the actors or the manifestors, then that like totally changes the structure of the market from a prediction
Hmm.
market to an incentive market. And I think that there are like some kind of interesting use cases for incentive markets. Like I was making jokes on Twitter about it, about like incentive markets replacing DoorDash and stuff like
Yeah.
that, which is like kind of ridiculous. Like it ended up like creating this whole like moment and discussion. I don't think that that is like a particularly useful case. But I think there is some other stuff related to collective action that could be really interesting. Like, so for example, if you tie a bet to an action and you say, bet that this song is going to get 1 million streams, then and you have to stream it in order to bet, and record labels might be interested in using markets with a certain structure similar to that in order to incentivize lots of people to participate in an action, and they might take the other side of the bet in order to incentivize people to stream the song. Like the record
Hmm.
label might say in the market, no, this is not going to happen, as a way of paying all the people who stream the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another interesting market that I low key think I invented it. I don't know. I haven't read all the literature, but it's like an auction for certainty. So say
Hmm.
you're using our prediction market to contract for a service. So like I want a house built, so I make a prediction market that says no one is gonna build a house right here with these specifications, and I put $500,000 in there, whatever the cost of the house would be, and then someone is going to do it. So they would take the other side of the market and then sort of commit themselves to making sure that the house actually gets built so that they can win the bet. And this isn't like, in a lot of ways, this is like not relevantly a prediction market. Like you want only one person to bet on the other side. But I think an interesting thing that this unlocks is like if I'm looking for a service and I really need it to be completed, then there can be an auction for certainty on the other side, which means like, okay, someone bets $10,000, which means, regardless, they're going to get paid $500,000 if it does get built, but they're kind of giving me this little insurance of like, okay, if I don't build this house, you get $10,000. Say someone else is more confident in their ability to build the house within the time frame that I've established that meets the specifications that I've established, and so they put 50,000 in there. And now I could give the $10,000 bet back. And what's going to end up happening is the person who is most certain that they can complete the task is going to be the person that takes the other side of the bet. And so it's
Hmm.
like de-risking me, making sure that I get paid if what I contracted for didn't happen. And it's also like kind of preventing me from the responsibility to do all this due diligence to determine whether a house builder is like
Yeah.
do what I want them to do, because it's just leaving it to the market to determine like who is the most certain that they can do
And
it.
yeah, the most important thing is there's that insurance because if they don't do it or anything, it will just resolve and you just get not only your money back, but a little bit more than that.
Yeah, yeah. It's literally them providing like, hey, this is the what is it called? Like there's a fee and a like a if you don't deliver, you pay a fee. It's just
Hmm.
that. I forgot what the word is, but yeah.
Yeah.
All of this stuff is just like the prediction markets economic theory stuff is all just like kind of reframing existing contract structures
Contracts,
into
yeah, it's
like
contracts from
like
first
a really
principles.
narrow
Yeah,
format. Like,
yeah,
yeah, but some of them are interesting. Like some of the features of prediction markets, like the fact that they're permissionless and so available, and that the contract terms are available to everyone. They're easy to interact with or public. Like some of those like features of the market make it conducive to facilitating certain economic relationships that are actually like
mhm.
interesting and fruitful.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one last topic I want to go to, but before we wrap up, is social media dynamics and social media consumption. When it comes to social media consumption, especially how it's evolved the past 20 years, before people used to go online to escape real life, and now we've kind of seen an inversion of that where people go in real life to escape online because being online is so impervious. It's impervious to everything. Like terms like, oh, I'm going to touch grass and this and that. I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on that, especially as it relates to new social media dynamics?
Yeah, so I think I don't know, I haven't done a whole lot of thinking about like how much should or will people use social media, because I'm kind of like, well, it depends what you're doing on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is a tool, technology is a tool. What are you doing on there? If you're wasting your
Yeah.
time and you're not really building any relationships, then like, okay, that's not great. But like for me, it's like social media is the reason that I moved to New York. It's like the reason that
Mm-hmm.
I have a career.
Yeah.
I've used social media in a pretty fruitful way. Like every time I'm scrolling the timeline, is it like a massive slay and like amazing? No, but it has had like good outcomes. I actually think like the
Yeah.
more interesting social media dynamic has to do with like the relationship between platforms and creators. But I'm happy to talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
consumer stuff if you want.
I was going to add to the consumer stuff, and then we can talk about platforms and creators. My view on it is it's incredibly fruitful for relationships. I would not be where I am today without the use of social media. But I think you can consume too much of social media, and then it's kind of like the same as, oh, if you're just like 20, 30 years ago, if you're watching too much of the news and you're just being misinformed. I think you can consume too much information on social media. And I think it's important to actually go and consume other types of information that's offline. Otherwise, you're just gonna think like everyone else, and and everything in that regard. So that's where I want to leave that. But social media and creators, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I have like this, and this is just me. Basically, the reason that I thought about this is I was like doing what everyone else was doing on Twitter, which was complaining about the algorithm and being
Yeah.
like, what is going on? Like, why is my content bad? And so I just like started thinking about it. And I was like, okay, I feel like the big change in social media, maybe over the past decade, but that has come to Twitter being bad
Hmm.
or X being like suboptimal at the moment, is basically like, okay, we used to have an ecosystem where media platforms actually like at the very beginning had to incentivize creators to come on there. Like it was a kind of like risky thing. People didn't know what was going on. Like people didn't know the ramifications of, for example, posting on YouTube. And so YouTube was doing all these things to like support creators. Like they would highlight them. Were they paying them well? I don't know. But basically the idea is that no one wanted to be a creator. Like you had to get people to be creators at the very beginning. And now it's like super, super shifted to everyone wants to be a creator. And now platforms, if they want to,
Mm,
get to like pick and choose and maybe even like gatekeep and monetize the gatekeeping process. And they get to decide who becomes creators and who they push using the algorithm. And so now that everyone wants to be a creator, basically platforms and creators are fighting over brand equity. So one option when I'm scrolling my Twitter timeline or my X timeline is, wow, I love going on X. I can't wait to open the X app tomorrow. Another option is I see a DeFi Dave tweet and I go, oh my God, DeFi Dave is so great. Like, need to follow him on other platforms and hang out with him in real life. And so like the value that I'm getting from scrolling X can either go to the individual creators who are posting there, or it can go to the platform.
hmm.
And I think like video content, it's really hard to separate the content from the user. And so a lot of the brand equity goes to the person who is literally on camera making the video. But on Twitter or X, where it's just text, I think the algorithmic changes right now are oriented toward atomizing the content. So the
What do you
idea
mean by
is
that?
that, yeah, the platform, in order to slow down or prevent users from creating their own brand and making content consumers think, wow, I love this person, and rather go, wow, I love this platform, is that they want to decontextualize the content. So they're showing
Oh,
content to
okay.
you that is not, so it used to be like, oh, I'm building a character online. Like I'm tweeting lots of things and they're not going viral and maybe no one cares. But over time, I'm like doing this joke or I'm presenting this theme. over the
Mm-hmm.
course of 100 tweets. But now the algorithm incentivizes, is made to incentivize people to create content that stands on its own and can go viral without context. And so this like decontextualization is basically a way of preventing people from building a brand.
That's like the TikTokization of Twitter. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, because TikTok, there is no context. It's just whatever the algorithm thinks is the most relevant to you that will keep you on that platform. Same thing with Twitter. It's the ultimate flattening. So instead of you building a character, building a persona, especially and especially cultivating a sub community, it's now all flattened into a giant town square. And I think that's why people are pissed because they miss their little communities. They miss, following different personas coming up. And I think that's why it's a lot harder to grow on Twitter now because of that decontextualization you mentioned.
Yeah, totally. And it totally mirrors the TikTok algorithm, like in the sense that you see a lot of content from people that you don't know. But again, I think there's like this really relevant difference, which is that on TikTok, people are mostly making videos of themselves. And so like
Yeah.
they
Oh,
are,
so it's like less. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Whereas like X content is less branded. Like, yeah, you get your name and your profile picture, but like if you're, depending on what type of post you're making, it's likely that people are just going to think about the post. They're not going to think about who's saying it.
Yeah. Something I think about a lot with TikTok is how much it's affected music, and especially rap and hip hop. I think before TikTok, you saw all these especially with rap, like the platform really affected the music. Like you had like Mac Miller and like all these blog era rappers got big on YouTube, SoundCloud. It literally is called the SoundCloud rap era. But TikTok just like I don't know, it just took like a wrecking ball to all that, and like there's like I feel like there hasn't, and not just with hip hop, but with like all different types of music. I'm just using hip hop as an example because that's what I know. And like there's like not really music that sticks anymore. And I feel like that's why we're kind of in this nostalgia loop. I'm curious, like, what do you think TikTok's dynamics are in like affecting the creation of culture like that? Or maybe I'm just an unk.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably both exhibit unk behaviors when it comes to this because like a young person like literally does not have the context to know how the music industry worked like 10 years ago, for example. We do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that it is kind of the same thing that music needs to stand on its own. And so like the idea of a concept album, like it
Hmm.
would be way harder to push a concept album now because you need to understand how the ideas are formed over the course of 10, 15 songs. And that could be really good and that can be really artistic, but it doesn't immediately like grab someone's attention in the way that is
Yeah.
necessary for like the TikTok promotion machine. And so I do think that there is a kind of trend where artists start doing really TikTok-y like commercial type of stuff in order to get like garner attention. And then once they have that attention, then they are afforded the ability to steer away from that style.
Hmm.
Now,
It's like a
how
top
many
of funnel.
yeah, exactly. Like how many artists are actually escaping the top of funnel and afforded the ability to do something that is not subject to like the optimization for the TikTok algorithm? Less than 1% probably.
Hmm.
And so like I do think it does kind of like make everything maximalist or it makes it more so that you have to fixate on the best 20 seconds of everything.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, I think this really speaks not just for music, but with everything, with this algorithm-driven technology nexus we're in. It's hard to go deep on things, like everything's so surface level because that's what the algorithm does. It just serves you like what is it thinks it interests you in that time. And it's like very hard to go deep on things. Like something I am guilty of is I have like all these bookmarks that I like want to read, but I just don't read them. It's just like the exercise of like I get like a taste of like what's going on there, but I actually don't go deep into it. And so I'm curious, like, what your thoughts on like algorithms and like how it kind of like prevents people into going deep because you're just on this like never ending treadmill of just like surface level content.
Yeah, well, I think like the example that you provided is actually a perfect way of describing the problem, which is that like algorithms are actually good at surfacing things that people are interested in. Like the
Hmm.
algorithms are not all bad. Like when
Yeah.
I get lots of content that is perfect for me if they do it right. I actually
Hmm.
feel like especially the TikTok algorithm is really, really, really good. And I think like what really
Yeah.
matters is that the algorithm is a discovery mechanism, but at some point you have to stop discovering and
Discovering.
engage. And
Yeah.
so like, if you were to just use the, scroll, like you're talking about your bookmarks, if you just actually went back and returned to all those bookmarks, that would be the perfect use of the algorithm, right? Because you really
Yeah.
are using it to discover things. And then you're going out on your own and like
Yeah.
exploring the things that you've discovered. And so I think like it really does come down to people having to like establish limits and
Mhm.
habits in relationship to technology that are like
Yeah.
good for them. Like I don't know, I don't know if it's like I don't think I advocate for like I'm not like, oh, ban a certain use of algorithms or something like that.
Yeah.
It's actually somewhat similar. My idea on the topic is somewhat similar to what I was saying about prediction markets, which is that I think like if it's very clear that TikTok as a platform has negative social repercussions, like maybe there should be something in the app that is kind of being like, hey, like this is doing this to you,
Mhm.
like you should consider doing this, which I know they do to some extent, but I think like more extreme versions of that are better. Like I don't really advocate for like banning things. I think you just incentivize people to use them well.
Mhm.
Even if it goes to the extreme, like I love how in some countries, like I think this is common in Europe, like a cigarette. I keep using cigarettes as an example. Cigarettes will have like these super grotesque images of
Yeah.
like people with crazy injuries from smoking, like do that. Like do that on TikTok. If
Yeah.
that's what you gotta do, like whatever information you have to share to kind of like get people to snap out of it, like,
Yeah.
yeah, do that. But like
Yeah, like you scroll and all of a sudden it like shows it's like this is you right now rotting. Like go outside.
yeah, it shows you like in the worst possible future. Like I don't know exactly what you would show. I guess I'm not super tapped into what are the I think it's less concrete what the negative implications of scroll like you're wasting time, but it's not like
Yeah.
you're not getting
I
hurt in
think
any
I yeah, no, I think when it comes to like social, I agree with you. It's like an incredible discovery tool. But when you can have too much of a good thing, and that's when people kind of just get in these holes, and you have to. That's why I've been out. Like that's why I said earlier, I try to go outside, get new inspiration, get new content, and then I like come back with like a different perspective that isn't just like some trance. I've actually been using like you know how they have like the brick and they have those like things more like how I
Oh,
use
yeah,
it.
you used it when
Yeah.
I saw you recently.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I like no, it's great. Because like I'm addicted to social media. So like I will check like constantly, but like having that like little bit of friction like makes me like, oh, it like gets me out of the trance we were talking about. And if I really want to go on, I just the physical app of like tapping it to unlock. Oh, I think everybody's different though. Like I remember I was showing my friend and he was like, "Oh, like why don't I just like block it myself? Like why I mean, why don't I just like go on my phone and use it myself? Like it doesn't like work for him in the same way."
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, the funny thing about that is that there's this battle between like, in this case, it's like the phone works in a certain way, and then we have a new piece of technology that kind of, like, neutralizes the phone's
It's a
capabilities.
neutralize yeah, neutralizes the
Yeah,
capability.
and, like, both of them are, like, I don't know, they're both making money off of, like, the fact that one is kind of creating a problem. Not that, like, there's any one entity who is, like, responsible for the ills of social media overuse or something like that, but I think it is, like I think we should pay more attention to which companies are causing the problems, and then
Mhm,
how can they use, like, their platform or technology to incentivize better uses of the technology, and I think,
mhm.
like, to me, that's where, like, regulation comes in.
Yeah. I'm curious how we can like steer it's probably like something with policy and regulation, but I feel like these things evolve so fast that the way our apparatus is, it can never really keep up. Like maybe I think before it was like, you know, 20 years ago they came up with or 30 years ago they came up with internet regulation pretty quickly. Like in the 90s they like defined like the rules that we have today that allowed the Facebooks and Twitters of the world to come about. But we really haven't had an update to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is true that, like, it all moves so quickly that it's always gonna be a kind of cat and mouse game, but, I mean,
Mhm.
I would rather have a cat and mouse game than, like,
Not doing anything.
no effort
Yeah.
whatsoever. I mean, the alternative is just that you blame the user and you make the user responsible for that, which I'm, like, low key also sympathetic to that viewpoint, like,
Yeah.
it's, like, basically what we do now, and I think that it is justifiable. But I just think, like, I don't know, if you're a big company that's influencing billions of people or hundreds of billions of people, then, like, you can
You
also be
have
responsible
some
for some
responsibility
form
too.
effects. Like,
Yeah, you
that's
are making this money. This is like the least you can do.
right. And I'm not saying that we need to ban you. I'm saying that we need to democratize information about the impacts of certain use cases for your technology. That's all I'm saying.
I sense a theme here with democratizing information.
Yeah, it's my, like, current, like, ideological fixation. It's, like, what I
Mhm.
think technology is for, it's how I think the economy should work. Yeah, I'm, like,
Yeah.
addicted to that concept right now. I mean, I really
Yeah.
have been for a while, but I just recently discovered, like, that was the commonality between a lot of
Yeah.
things.
Now you're articulating it and are coming up with conclusions.
Yeah.
and coming on here to do so.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think this is a great place to put a pin in it. So, Quasimatt, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to follow you, and keep up with you, where should they find you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Quasimatt on everything. So actually just go on quasimatt.com and then my social media links are at the bottom.
Yep. Quasimatt, go follow him, read his writings. You can follow me at DeFi Dave. And if you're watching this and you like what you're watching and seeing, make sure you like, subscribe, follow on all platforms that we're on: X, Twitter, YouTube, Substack, Spotify, Apple, and whatnot. Thank you for coming on. Thank you to our sponsor, Cap. We love the patronage, and we'll see you soon. And I'll see you around.
Peace.
Peace. Stay on.